Okay, I got an image here, and I made this a 300 dpi image, so it's pretty high res. Um, Now, if you want to draw a circle, you know, your left mouse button will select the fill, and your right mouse button selects the border if there is one. So, um, like for example, if we're going to draw a circle, but you've got to choose these colors ahead of time unless you want to go use the fill tool. So it works a little different. Now the border I've got set to 0 right now, and apparently you can choose an outline color here if you want, or you can just double click on these swatches. Okay, but you can pull up this or mixer, if you want. So, but anyway, if you don't draw an outline, that's what it looks like. You can turn this marquee off if you want, or you can add a border, but again, you got to do it before the fact. So, and just like Corel, you can make it symmetric and so forth by holding in the shift keys. Works kind of the same way. Now we're creating objects over here, so you can click on these objects, and that's why it's sometimes nice to leave the marquees on, so it keeps you aware of that fact. These are objects, and an object, you can double click on it and edit the properties. But you can go to the object pick tool, and then you can move and resize and rotate and stretch out and skew. Also do that kind of proportionally. So anyway, you got that. So you just have to select a different object, and you're in business. But basically every time you draw something like a rectangle, it's basically a new object. So although by default we don't have any borders selected, so but it does remember your border for that tool versus this tool independently. So okay, now if you double click on the fill though, it brings you up a lot of different options. So you can go just use a generic color like we got selected here, or you can do a gradient. So edit to be conical, for example, and choose the colors. Okay. And that should apply to no matter which tool we have. So, but you can also, of course, choose a pattern like you can in CorelDRAW. So anyway, that's how to do a pattern fill and a gradient. But you can also certainly go fill the background, obviously. But like I said, the paint bucket fill tool will work. Okay, we're selecting our little objects. It's hard to tell, but it'll work with with fill you got selected there, and it apparently does scale it to the size of the object. So if you go to object picker tool, you can pick a different object that way as well. And fill it. Now, when we bring up the perspective handles, which is what this is, you know, it does, you know, particularly if you have a border, you can really start to see the perspective effect, you know, and what it really does. Okay, now in the object manager, you can scale it if you want, but you can also turn on thumbnail extents mode, which, you know, instead of seeing the whole screen, you'll see a close-up of the actual extents of the object. So, whoops. So, you know, that shows you the screen view, and that's a, you know, kind of a close-up. So, anyway, I guess you can control visibility by clicking this. Create clipping group, clip mask, and lock transparency. Opacity, so I can basically, you know, make a project, an object more, oops, I'm in pen mode right now. Anyway, if I want to select on an object, you know, I can change its opacity, as you can see over there. Now, of course, you know, if I want to change the order of an object, you know, I can do that, and that'll put it, you know, behind or before the object. And you can also create objects here as a blank object. So, you know, that I could actually go hypothetically draw on that object. But no, it creates a new object. But I'll bet you there's a way you can do that. Just don't know what it is. Alright, you know, if you come over and, you know, select your magic wand tool, remember you've got multiple mask modes, you know, just like in Photoshop, you know, but you know, you probably want to go into additive mode usually, but you got subtractive mode and overlap mode. Now you can, you know, view it as a mask like that or the marching ants version, and, you know, sometimes that's a good mask to use. But again, put it in additive mode. You know, select more and more of our bird here. Nope, I got carried away. So we want to reduce our tolerance here to, like, say 4. That's a little too. Now, I don't know if they have like a mask painter or not. Yeah, I guess they do. Brush mask. That's a little outside of the lines on it. See if I can. No. Change my brush size. I don't know if you can do it with your. That's. I'm sure you can change it somehow. I like to see an outline of the fucking brush so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, well, the brush mask is not like in Photoshop. Photoshop, you know, you can set the brush mask with a tolerance, so you know, instead of just painting it. magnetic mask. Let's see what that does. Oh, no big deal. Okay, setting its tolerance up to about 8 on the magic wand. Well, yeah, this is a lot more difficult to do mask selections than in Photoshop. A lot more difficult. You know, it's not nearly as powerful. Because this would be relatively easy to mask out in Photoshop as opposed to here. Anyway, by selecting object, create, when I had a mask, I use this copy selection. So now I do have this as an object. So as a result, I can move it, but it is just a copy. So we still got a background image, which is locked. But then of course, I can probably copy that object over to here. So now we got a copy of this object in this drawing as well.